the heck does Elon Musk think he is? Oh, my principles. You're just going to completely stand against a country's ruling saying, hey, Elon, let's not have these folks on a website. Granted, it's your website, but it's...
Instead of focusing on winning arguments, we're teaching the basic fundamentals of sales and marketing and how we can use them to win in the world of politics, teaching you how to meet people where they're at on the issues they care about. Welcome to The Brian Nichols Show.
All right, and with that, returning to The Brian Nichols Show from NetChoice, Nichols and Szabo. Welcome back, my friend. How you doing?
Doing well. Getting ready for some fireworks, some debates, and hopefully an election very soon, so we can all move past it.
I love how you put the caveat, hopefully an election, because, yeah, things have gotten a little weird, specifically, and by the way, elephant in the room, reason you're on on the show today, you can tell I'm still in work brain. The reason you're on the show today, Carl, is because we've watched over the past 12 months, there seems to have been a much more, we'll just say, ramping up of the government's attack, the government's not favoring of tech in general. And right now we're seeing that. You look at the antitrust cases that were levied against Google, and then the entire country of Brazil banning X and saying, you are no longer welcome here. So, Carl, there's a lot to unpack in our world today, but how about this? Before we get there, it's been 6 months since you were on the show back in March. A lot's happened since you were on the show, candidly. We were talking about that before we hit the record button. So just for the audience that's new here, maybe didn't catch your March appearance there, just quick introduction to the Brian Nichols Show audience. Who's NetChoice? What do you guys do? And then we'll dig into the meat and potatoes for today.
Yeah, so quite simply, NetChoice is a trade association that fights for free expression, free enterprise on the internet. It's pretty simple mandate. I'm Vice President and General Counsel there. I also teach at the George Mason Antonin Scalia Law School. But most importantly, you need to know that you can like, follow, and subscribe on X at NetChoice, NetChoice, and like, follow, and subscribe to my X feed at Nichols and Szabo, Carlszza, B as in boy, O's in October. But yeah, we've been fighting hard since I last saw you. We had a win at the U.S. Supreme Court on First Amendment grounds. We had a win at the Ninth Circuit against the state of California, where they tried to engage in censorship. And by the way, there was 2 political conventions and a whole bunch of other activities since then.
And by the way, one of them is like a current presidential frontrunner / former president of the United States. Assassination attempts? Carl, there's been a lot going on behind the scenes. And by the way, said assassination attempt, if you weren't on X, you might not realize that it happened 8 weeks ago as we're recording here today on the 9th of September. That just blows me away. And you mentioned go follow you on X. I mean, yeah, unless you're living in Brazil, right? Which, I mean, obviously we want them to still follow you, but there might be some difficulties there, Carl. So how about this? We'll jump headfirst into our conversation, starting out with X being banned in the entire country of Brazil because Elon Musk said, fine, Brazilian government, you can take your fist and shake it at my Starlink satellites. Carl, talk to us. What is going on with this whole X being banned by Brazil thing?
So let's be clear. Governments do not like free speech. Governments do not like free speech because
if there's any confusion.
I don't know if that's a secret or if I'm letting the cat out of the bag or something, saying the quiet part out loud. Governments do not like free speech because it allows people like you, people like me, people like the listeners to actually express their views, to actually hear alternative ideas and concepts, and maybe hear that, I'm not alone if I think that maybe COVID came from a lab in China. And government likes to control the narrative. That's why our founders baked into the U.S. Constitution, into the Bill of Rights, the First Amendment, the right to free speech for you and me, because they knew government, if given the chance, will seize control. Well, that's exactly what has happened in the country of Brazil. Basically, some people were talking about the political opponents of the president. You had the online equivalent of Joe Rogan. You had a Brazilian senator, a Brazilian congressman, all of whom the government decided were spreading, quote, misinformation, and demanded that Elon Musk and X terminate those accounts. Well, Elon Musk said, no, I'm not going to do that. That's free speech. That violates my principles. No, I'm not going to terminate these political accounts just because you, Brazilian president, don't like him. So what ended up happening is, typically what would happen in this situation is the Brazilian government would actually arrest the employees of X in Brazil. Well, Elon Musk got his people out before that happened. So instead, they just banned the operation of X in the country. And any Brazilian who uses a VPN or tries to do an end run around the systems in place to actually access X, if you're caught, you get fined $9,000 a day. So, yeah, the government is not playing around, because they recognize, hey, free speech means Brazilians might actually realize that some of the stuff we're doing isn't too good and isn't too popular.
Well, okay, now, Carl, I'm gonna put my devil's advocate hat on for a second.
Please.
Because this has been an argument I've heard from a lot of folks, specifically on the political left. They say, well, Carl, who the heck does Elon Musk think he is? Oh, my principles. You're just going to completely stand against a country's ruling, saying, hey, Elon, let's not have these folks on a website. Granted, it's your website, but it's in our country. And this is the argument, by the way, I've heard Carl presented, and they really try to steelman this. And I want to hear your take here. They steelman it by saying, well, Brian, what if there was child endangerment? We'll just use that word, for we all know what happens in the world. But what if that type of video or content was on X, and the Brazilian government, or name your favorite government here, was like, well, no, we can't have child endangerment on these platforms. Elon, delete that. That's the steelman, Carl. Where are they getting it wrong?
So there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, the argument of, well, you just need to follow the laws of the country. You can't possibly have a different opinion when it comes to free speech. Let's use a different example. Let's presume these were Russian dissidents who wanted to get the message out about the atrocities being committed by Putin. Let's presume these are Iranians who are trying to talk about how women are mistreated and trying to talk about overthrowing the Shah. Well, that would be okay, wouldn't it? Absolutely. So why is that allowed, but not this? Well, then you've got people like Elon Musk being yelled at, because now you're picking winners and losers and deciding what speech should or should not be allowed. And in this case, they are Brazilian dissidents who are speaking out against government. Now let's go to your straw man argument of child abuse, child sexual abuse material, stuff like that. I will tell you right now that X spends tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars every single year identifying, removing, and referring that material to law enforcement. But here's the sad part. Less than 1% of all reports of child sexual abuse material online even get investigated here in the United States of America. Less than 1%. So
what?
It's a depressingly alarming statistic. That means 99% don't even get investigated. They go straight. They go into the trash.
Holy hell, that's scary.
It is, as a parent, it is terrifying.
Yeah.
So yeah, their straw man argument doesn't take into account that, yes, we are detecting it, yes, we are reporting it, yes, we are removing it, but yet the bad guys don't seem to suffer any jail time. In fact, Senator Ron Wyden has a bill sitting in the Senate that Chuck Schumer refused to take up. It's called the Invest in Child Safety Act, which would give...
Hey folks, I want to take a moment to talk about something that has truly changed my life, and that is Cardio Miracle, our incredible studio sponsor. Now, I'll be honest, when I first heard about Cardio Miracle and their claims about improving heart health, I was skeptical. But after using it for just about 2 months, I was absolutely blown away by the results. First, my blood pressure went from being consistently around 140/90 to a much more healthier and manageable 120/80. And my resting heart rate dropped from the low 70s to the high 50s. and I couldn't believe it. But the benefits didn't stop there. I started sleeping better, and I felt more energized at the gym, and my heart felt the best it's felt in years. And it's not just me. Hundreds of you, our amazing listeners, have reached out to share your own incredible experiences with Cardio Miracle. So, what is Cardio Miracle, and how does it work? It's a carefully crafted supplement that harnesses the power of nitric oxide to support optimal heart function. So, by increasing nitric oxide levels in your blood, Cardio Miracle helps relax your blood vessels, improve circulation, and it protects your heart from damage. It's like giving your heart the support it needs to function at its best. And here's the best part. We've got an exclusive offer just for you, our loyal listeners here at The Brian Nichols Show. When you head over to cardiomiracle.com and use code TBNS at checkout, you'll get an extra 15% discount on your order. Plus, with their 100% money-back guarantee, you've got nothing to lose and everything to gain. So, if you're ready to take control of your heart health and experience the life-changing benefits of Cardio Miracle for yourself, just click the link in the show notes or video description. Trust me, your heart will thank you. And don't wait another day to prioritize your health. Join the tens of thousands of folks who have already discovered the Cardio Miracle difference. Head to cardiomiracle.com now and use code TBNS for 15% off your order. Your journey to a happier and healthier heart starts today. And now, let's get back to the show.
Law enforcement, more resources to actually investigate these reports of child sexual abuse material. So, yeah, the straw man argument falls apart real fast in the face of facts and reality. And so I know, authoritarians hate facts and reality. That's why they try to control the speech. But that's exactly what's going on here. They'll pull out this bull argument, and we've heard this before. So, if listeners remember, a couple years ago, the Department of Justice was demanding that Apple create an encryption backdoor.
That's right.
The backdoor to encryption, and it was either the head of the Justice Department or the FBI, I forget which, was before Congress, and he was saying, "Well, what if there's a child trapped in the trunk of a car, and the only way to find him or her is by getting access to this device?" Okay, it's a worthwhile concern. And then let's say it was the head of the FBI, just for sake of argument. The head of the FBI was asked by a member of Congress, "So tell me once when that has happened." And they had no examples. And that's part of the problem, is too often people pull out these straw man arguments, they dive into hypotheticals because they don't want to accept the reality that, yes, encryption is really useful. If you're a journalist and you want to make sure your source in an authoritarian regime isn't literally strung up for reporting what they're seeing, you want end-to-end encryption. And in this case, if you want to be able to hold your government accountable because maybe they're not doing exactly what you want or what they say they're going to do, or they're engaging in authoritarian actions, you want that freedom of speech. But Brian, one last thing, and this is also really scary. It's not just Brazil. So right now in Britain, they actually have police monitoring what Britons and the British citizens are posting online. And if you say something that's not right, that the government doesn't like, they are literally sending police to people's doors to help correct them. I mean, that's like straight out of 1984, where you have to have, the newspeak for those, and you get sent to the Ministry of Truth and stuff like that. That's the type of thing that we're seeing. And then finally, it's coming here. Yep. We saw it a couple years ago with the Disinformation Governance Board with Scary Mary Poppins. I don't know if anybody remembers that.
Oh, I forgot about her. Ugh.
Yeah, she's terrifying. And she was so extreme. She was so over the top that idea kind of died on the vine. But it didn't go away. This monitoring has been happening. And unfortunately, if you look at, for example, Vice President Harris's campaign site, she just today announced her platform agenda. Free speech is completely missing. And so not only is it missing from her platform, we're hearing nothing but crickets out of this administration for the censorship activities going on in Brazil, in Britain, and even here at home.
Because they love it. I mean, let's break it down as black and white as we can, because they want it here, to your point, right? And the folks that will cry for liberty and freedom, or what did Kamala say? Freedom. Okay. There's her freedom of speech, was complete BS, and it was ripped from, I think it was Rosa Parks or Martin Luther King. It was one of those stories that she had clearly just copy and pasted into her own story. But it's those folks, right, who clamor for freedom and liberty the most, who in this case, they're going to do their darndest to leverage government to take away liberty and freedom, just because it's from the folks that we don't like. And that right there, Carl, that's where I get a little apprehensive when I look at where our government's heading. And I say a little apprehensive, a lot of apprehension, because you look at how quickly the slippery slope, just, I mean, you mentioned over in the United Kingdom, what we see are happening over there. We mentioned down in Brazil, what we're seeing happening there. It can happen overnight. And that's the part I think a lot of Americans really got to start waking up to, is that this isn't just stuff happening overseas. This isn't just stuff happening down in foreign countries that are thousands of miles away. No, this is stuff that can happen in your backyard. And actually, a lot of the states that we have here are, I say a lot of the states, a lot of the blue states are more than happy to become test cases for putting these practices in place. I mean, you mentioned Brazil. It's down to the south of us. We got England over across the pond. And then right above us, we got Canada. And Canada's implementing this stuff left and right as well. So it's not a matter of if, right? It's a matter of when. And I guess to that, Carl, what can we do? What defense can we play? And then on the flip side, what offense can we play to help push back?
Yeah, so the first thing is, when you see something like the New York Times publishing an op-ed entitled "The First Amendment Has Gone Too Far" from a former Biden White House official, when you see the New York Times publishing an op-ed just the other week entitled "The Constitution is the Greatest Threat to American Democracy," I'm serious. These are their titles. We need to push back. We need to call out those absurd statements. We need to call out those absurd authors. But we can't stop there. So there's a bill that passed out of the House of Representatives from Chairman Jim Jordan. It's called the Protecting Free Speech from Government Interference Act. And it sounds like a fancy title, but what it does is pretty simple. It says, if you are a government employee, you cannot use your official position to censor political content online. Kind of no nonsense. We've actually had a law on the books for 40, 50 years ago called the Hatch Act, which basically says, and I'm a former federal employee, and this was beat into us, you cannot use your government position for political purposes. So if when I was working for the federal government, I couldn't go around campaigning for the Democratic campaign or the Republican campaign or the independent campaign. You can't do that. That makes sense. So all this is saying is you can't do it online. Well, that bill, it passed out of the House, but it was straight party line vote. All the Republicans in favor, all the Democrats against. And it has sat in the U.S. Senate for over a year. Now, let's presume President Trump wins in November. The Democrats would be pretty excited to have that level of protection against a Trump administration. But for some reason, a lot of people can't think more than a month ahead and can't possibly conceive that they would be out of power. So that's one thing that we can do, is get that enacted. Second is, President Trump just the other day, actually on the campaign trail, said as soon as he takes office, he will sign an executive order to terminate any federal employee engaged in online censorship and who engaged in online censorship. Great idea. These should be non-controversial ideas. Government employees should work for the American people. And I can tell you this, when I became a government employee, I took the same oath that every president takes, and that is to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States of America. And within those pages is the First Amendment. So every time a government employee takes it upon themselves to not only violate their oath of office, in this case, general employee, and their duty to the American people, they should be booted immediately.
Yep.
And so that's the step that we can take. We can start getting rid of the driftwood and the political messing with the federal government and get them out of the censorship business. The last thing I'll say is that's ultimately not only good for, liberals or Republicans or people in the middle when the other party's in power, it's good for America writ large because it will reinstill.
If you think you're supporting small farms with your coffee choices, think again. Many brands hide behind fancy packaging while sourcing cheap coffee beans. So you need to stop compromising on quality and on ethics. Clockham Craft Coffee was born from a desire for both transparency and excellence in the coffee game. They personally select every bean, ensuring top quality and fair practices. So experience coffee the way it's supposed to be. Honest, delicious, and roasted with care. Plus, an exclusive offer for Brian Nichols Show fans. Use code BNS10 for 10% off at clockhamcraft.coffee. Link in the show notes. And now, let's get back to the show.
Faith and confidence in the system. Because right now, everybody thinks it's politically rigged against them. And this will help to provide a proof point that government works for all Americans, not just the political party in office.
And by the way, you mentioned that they can't seemingly look one election ahead. Look at Google right now, right? We talked about this beforehand. Google's currently facing not one, but two antitrust suits. And Google's not exactly known to be some bastion of right-wing integrity or support. They're very much known to be more politically leaning left. And you just go to the Google homepage on Easter, which is the default Google image, and then you go on whatever, name your rainbow color celebration of the day, and they'll have explosions and fireworks, and of course all types of different silly, I'm just going to use the word silly, cartoons there. But talk to us about that, Carl, because that's where I think, again, this preconceived notion, it's only the folks on the right who are going to get attacked, right? Nope, that's not the case. Give us some context of what's going on with Google right now.
Yeah, so this is part of a bigger threat that we've seen, especially out of this administration. And it is this fundamental belief that success is sinful, that in America, anyone can make it as long as they don't make too much. This is the whole redistribution, communism, socialism, rather than trying to, pull myself up by my bootstraps or earn that fancy car or that nice house. I have to take that fancy car or nice house from somebody so that they can give that money to me.
The pie is only so big. It never grows.
Yeah, exactly. It can never grow. Exactly. And that thinking has weaseled its way into what's called antitrust law. Antitrust law was originally created to make sure that there is competition in the marketplace in a way that doesn't hurt consumers. So think about it this way. Imagine there's only one store. So we have to go back decades because right now you can access thousands of stores online, right?
Anywhere, yeah.
We have the dilemma of choice almost. But, the idea is there's one store and they have no competition, so they could set the price of a can of Coca-Cola $100, which, of course, because they're the only ones in town. So that's what it was originally created for. But since then, we've gotten smart and we've realized, you know what? Just being a monopoly in and of itself isn't bad. If you're constantly innovating, developing, keeping prices low, that can actually be a good thing. So what did we decide? We decided you need to have something else. It's called consumer harm. So ultimately, if consumers are being harmed, then it's a problem. So going back to my grocery store example, right? If the grocery store, because they are so big, they get what's called economies of scale. They can buy in bulk, right? It's like going to Costco. They could charge a penny for that can of Coca-Cola. And that's way below any price we would normally say. Well, that's not really a problem for anybody. In fact, you're getting the benefits of a growing business, and eventually somebody would come into the marketplace and disrupt. But if they're charging $100 for a can of Coca-Cola, that is a problem. So that's consumer harm, right? Our consumers being harmed. So there are two trials right now against Google. And they're both arguing consumer harm and monopoly. So the first is on search. So the first argument is, well, Google has a monopoly on search. Okay, well, the judge not only ignored the existence of AI and any other competitor, they basically said, well, in the marketplace of Google, Google is a monopoly. Okay, thanks. let's assume for the sake of argument they are a monopoly. What's the harm? I don't know about you. Google has the best search engine, and their products give the best results. And if I don't like them, I go over to DuckDuckGo, or I go over to Bing or something else.
Mhm.
So where's the consumer harm? It doesn't exist. But nonetheless, the administration doesn't like Google, so they brought that suit. Second suit is most recent. It's actually starting on September 9th, Monday, is the first day of this suit. And this is over advertising. And the argument, once again, is Google has a monopoly on advertisements. Well, CNN.com uses over 100 different ad networks. New York Times uses about 15 different ad networks, and the average publisher uses about 6 different ad networks. So I don't know. I suspect these individuals didn't study any basic Latin or anything, because to be a monopoly, you have to be one, not one of many. So
Mono.
yeah, exactly,
Prefix.
monopoly, exactly.
One.
So what is this really about? Well, ultimately, it's about sending a message to American businesses that are succeeding, because it's not only Google that's being attacked under these antitrust suits. You have Amazon, Meta, Microsoft, who else? Famously, Albertsons is being attacked right now for groceries.
JetBlue, Spirit, right? We talked about that last time.
Yeah, it's another day, another antitrust suit, because at the end of the day, the government wants to send the message: success is sinful. Oh, that's right. The latest one on the chopping block, NVIDIA, which you roll back the clock 2 years, nobody knew who NVIDIA was unless you're a gamer like me and you need a GeForce graphics card, or you weren't paying attention. And we actually, government created $40 billion to get more chips out there. Now we're attacking NVIDIA for being too successful in creating microchips. So this is the problem. It's an attack on American innovation, American success. And that's going to be more of the same under a second Harris administration, because she's gone out there and said, you know why everything's so expensive? It's because of big meat and big grocery store, and not the inflation that we have injected into the economy. So that's what we're seeing here, is a war on American success. And what's really scary for all of us looking to the future is it is sending out giant flashing lights and warning signs to every business, every entrepreneur, every investor, saying, don't build here, don't come here, take your technology and innovation to another country. And just like we've seen every great idea or great company flee California, New York, and head for the border, we're going to see the same thing across the United States if this antitrust crusade against American businesses continues.
Well, and to a point you raised up earlier, Carlo, it's like we can't pretend that the internet doesn't exist. Like I have the advantage. There we go. I can say that word.
Yeah,
advantage of working remotely, right? And that's all because of the internet. We have the ability to have this conversation, even though we're hundreds of miles apart, because of the internet. So, like, just to pretend that the internet and the just insane amount of opportunity that's created and options that's created, just to pretend doesn't exist, like it's ignoring reality. And I guess this is where I get stuck, Carl. And this will be my final thought before I turn things over to you. Like,
hey everyone, let's talk about the elephant in everybody's room: insurance. Does all that insurance jargon make your head spin? If so, you're not alone. It's tough to make smart decisions about your family's protection when it all sounds like gobbledygook. Well, I recently discovered a company that's changing the insurance game, and that company is called Policy Engineer. These folks are on a mission to make insurance understandable for everyone. They offer free educational webinars, personalized consultations, and easy-to-digest resources to help you become an insurance pro. Here's their approach. They explain, you decide. They'll walk you through your options, answer all of your questions, and empower you to make confident choices about your family's future. Because when you understand your coverage, you can rest easy knowing you made the right decision all along. Ready to take control of your insurance? Head over to policyengineer.com and start your journey to becoming an informed, empowered policyholder. And of course, don't forget to tell them the Brian Nichols Show sent you. Policy Engineer, redefining insurance one member at a time. And now, let's get back to the show.
It seems to be a war between common sense and idealism in America right now. And I don't know if this battle has really been going on behind the scenes for generations, and like every so often it peaks out to say, I'm still here. But that's just what it feels like today, where I see there's so many people who they acknowledge the elephant in the room. And that elephant in the room is that whatever we have right now, it's not working. And that we need to go back to more basics, right? Go back to some just basic supply and demand in a free market. Let's go back to the basics of freedom of speech. Maybe let's start to pull back some regulation. I mean, we saw this during COVID. People were like, hey, we need to go ahead and get things to go faster. What should we do? Oh, get red tape out of the way? Brilliant. Why didn't we think about that before COVID, right? So I think COVID was really kind of like the elephant in the room. It's more like a bull in a china shop, if we're going to be real. Like, COVID just broke so much stuff, and it opened people's eyes to like, oh, it doesn't have to be this way. There are other ways of doing things. And once we talk about this in sales, once you see it, you can't unsee it. So I'm hoping, Carl, that for all the folks out there who are starting to wake up, they're starting to see it, that they will stand up, they will speak out, because as many of folks that are the common sense extremists, there are also the idealistic folks out there who it makes me think of is it Life of Brian? Is it Monty Python? Oh, but father, the little the prince he's all prim and proper, like, I want to sing. Like, that's what it feels like, is you have a group of folks who they're in this flowery made up world where it's like, whose line is it anyway? The points are made up, the game's made up and the points don't matter, whatever it is. Like that's what it feels like. And I'm hoping, Carl, that enough of us common sense extremists can speak out, hopefully make some changes. But be aware, right? Be aware that there's a lot of these idealistic folks out there who they don't believe in meritocracy. They don't believe in the idea of hard work. They don't believe in the ideas of competition or success, to your point, Carl. Like, they're allergic to this idea of success. Somebody else succeeding means that somebody else must have gotten hurt, right? Not that somebody's succeeding and another person succeeding, not in spite of each other, but hear me out, maybe because of each other, right? Maybe I created an industry or a solution that opened the door to other solutions, right? Like, that happens. And it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Like, those kind of just things that we never thought of just come out of the marketplace. Look at, again, what we're doing right now. Some guy didn't sit down back in 1865 and said, well, you know what would be nice one day is to have this little device that would connect everybody everywhere and they could talk to each other. Like, he didn't sit down and map this out. And then one day we had the internet. That was Al Gore. But no, what happened is a bunch of different people who were like, ooh, there's something we could do with a computer. And then, ooh, there's something we could do with telephone lines. Let's juice those up. Oh, there's something we can do with, and it's that mentality. There's something we can do with, and all of a sudden, you and I are on a StreamYard account, using high-speed internet on a computer, hundreds of miles away from each other, having a great conversation, and nobody's said like, oh, we're going to plan for Brian and Carl in 200 years to be able to do this. Here's the plan. It just happened, right? So in that spirit, things are just going to happen. And instead of trying to put the genie back in the bottle, let's embrace change and understand that that's the ever constant in life is change. So I'll get off my soapbox now, Carl. And with that, I'll turn things over to you to bring us home. Final thoughts, sir.
Yeah, and it's actually something I never thought about before, but listening to your soapbox, during COVID, there were two schisms, two schools of thought. One is kind of this infantilization, and the other is a demand for freedom. And what I mean by the infantilization is, well, the government will just take care of me. They'll give me lots of money. They'll pay me to stay in my house and not do anything. And the government can do it all. And I can just sit here and be fat and merry.
Watch Tiger King on Netflix.
Exactly. The other side of the aisle is the no government, stay out of my life. I want to be able to go outside. I want to be able to go see my family. I want to go to a sporting event. I want to actually live my life the way I want. And so you saw this schism, and you saw a lot of people in Florida or Montana just really succeed, and those states have taken off, the freedom-loving states. The clampdown, the government can do it all states of New York and California, they're suffering. And so unfortunately, what we need is for a collective wake up in those. Government is the answer to our problems, not the cause of our problems. Realization from those states, and hopefully they figure it out before they completely collapse. Because right now, the trajectory for all those blue states, it's not looking too good. And as much as it's nice to have Schadenfreude, where you look at the failure of the blue states, I'd rather have them realize that we all need to succeed, to your point, than just to have them crash and burn. And so they better figure it out soon, because their trajectory is going the wrong way. And the better answer is less government, more money in our pockets, and more freedom.
Here. And by the way, if you are in one of those not so great blue states right now, like I was back in COVID, get out, right? While you still can. I'm not trying to be morbid, but like if you have the chance to move to a red state, do it. Nothing's stopping you. Or maybe there is, just if that's the case, let's have that conversation. But like, if you have the opportunity, take it. And if you are not in that ability to take that change, be the change you want to see, right? Go out of your way, start being, the person going to the meetings, raising up the concerns and saying, maybe what we're doing isn't working. And maybe we should do things, I don't know, differently. And let's look at the states who aren't doing too bad. Let's look at them as an example. I don't know, just a thought. Carl Szabo from NetChoice, it's always a pleasure having you on the show, my friend. With that being said, where can folks go ahead, learn more about NetChoice? And of course, you did drop your X handle there at the beginning of the show. Go ahead, drop it again so they can go ahead, jot it down, and make sure they go ahead and check out all the cool things you're talking about.
Yeah, you got to like, follow, and subscribe. So you can check out what NetChoice is doing at netchoice.org, NetChoice, netchoice.org, and you can follow NetChoice on X at NetChoice, and you can follow me at Carl Szabo, CarlSza, B as in boy, O as in October, on X.
And by the way, folks, I hear you all asking. No, Carl is not asking Disney to do the Acolyte Season 2. I know you all see the Star Wars stuff in the background. He has told me ahead of time he was not a fan. I'm just kidding, Carl. I don't know if you are a fan or not.
There are only 3 movies, although I will allow Rogue One to also enter the lexicon, because that movie was amazing.
Oh, Rogue One was incredible. I would watch Rogue One over any of the new movies that came out over the past 9 years now at this point, which makes me want to throw up to think that it was Force Awakens 9 years ago that launched this just cataclysmic destruction of Star Wars and the entire IP along with it. But unfortunately, Carl, that is a different conversation for a different day. I know what we're going to talk about next time. With that being said, Carl, thanks for joining, folks. Thank you for joining. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up here on a solo. So, Carl, thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you next time.
Have a good one.
Thanks for listening to The Brian Nichols Show. Find more episodes at briannicholsshow.com.